and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. Of course, this year we are doing 1991, perhaps the greatest year ever. We will have to let you know at the end of all this, but so far it's looking pretty good. My name is Greg, and I am joined with my two best friends fighting it out to be a number one best friend, Ryan and Mike. Before you introduce yourself, gentlemen.
Okay.
Before
I'm sorry.
You introduce yourselves.
Mike.
Gentlemen, you may have heard Mike just get a point there. So you should know this is a game show, and I will be scoring these gentlemen based on cogent analysis, points well made, making me laugh, appealing to my vanity, or destroying me with a well-placed insult. Guys, welcome to the show. We are discussing Boyz n the Hood, and let me know, what is your history with the movie Boyz n the Hood, Mike?
Well, I was once a boy in a hood, Greg.
In a neighborhood. In a neighborhood, okay.
And, a lot of cul-de-sacs.
So,
Ryan.
No apostrophe hood.
No.
You spelled the entire word.
And
Is it Boyz and the Hood, or is it
It's in.
Boyz in the Hood?
You would think the N might make you think and.
Yes.
But I think they would use an ampersand at that point. It's in the hood.
Okay. Is it Sex and the City, or Sex in the City?
It depends on where you come from as far as your Mandela rules go.
Is it Tom and Jerry, or is it Tom in Jerry?
Tom and Jerry is a porno I directed.
you read the slash fiction on the Pop Filter Patreon.
We're definitely getting into it.
I had not seen this movie. This is like, I'd heard this was like the start of the Cuba Gooding Jr. and Ice Cube, like, people watch this one. Oh, shit. And it was always like, you got to watch it. But I had not seen this before this week.
Ice Cuba.
Ice Cuba. The Cuba that's got just a little bit more alcohol, a little bit more of a taste to it.
Cuba
Ryan,
dry.
what is your history
I've
with
seen this movie 7,000 times.
7,000?
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I grew up basically only watching black pop culture, and this was a major, major part of it. So was Martin. It wasn't all just stuff that was drama. I watched a lot of Martin. I watched a lot of Living Single and Living Color.
And did you do this with any intention to, like, did you even have any thoughts about it? Like, oh, now I'm going to go check out this other show by black creators, or did it just something that just, like, sort of happened? It was part of the American experience and you were interested in it?
Honestly, like, everything that was interesting that was happening, just like, there was no, like, oh, this has black people in it, so therefore I will watch it. It's, this is what my friends are watching. This is what is supposed to be interesting. And interesting in that, like, 10-year-old way. It's not like we were, like, writing papers about things, but everything that was cutting edge that people were talking about as far as music, because all we did was listen to hip-hop, sports, we only watched the NBA, and TV and movies, we only watched stuff made for and by black people.
Yeah, and there was just not the intentionality to it, but that's just the way it was. And so it was like, and it was very unexamined. We were kids, but I think culturally it was less examined too.
But there's a lot of garbage that comes with that, just like there's a lot of garbage that comes with anything. And I think that the importance of Boyz n the Hood is that, what if it wasn't? What if we could make some sort of ripple in all cultures? You know, like, not just affect these people who only watch black things, or these people who will like anything because it's black, but everyone's going to hear about this movie. And it hadn't been done for 2 years, because Do the Right Thing also did that. But this was the biggest thing since that, I would say.
Crossover success.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something
It's
about
sort of...
Boys, because Boyz II Men also did that musically?
I don't know if the 4-letter word of BOYZ had something to do
really
with
brought
the
people
success.
in?
I
But
have to say,
Boyz II Men was success only with older white women. I don't know if that was a crossover hit.
I watched the movie when I was a kid a couple of times, and I have to say the big difference between watching it when you're 10 and watching it now is the boys part really underlined. Like, these are
Children.
kids. Yeah, these are very, very young people. And the problem when you're 10 is they look like adults to me, you know? And so this time around, and the whole point is how young and immature they are for the most part, and what a tragedy that is. But that was the part that really hit home, because I remember, being into this movie, for lack of a better word, but certainly, and thinking of it as tragic, but I don't think fully understanding
how tragic.
Obviously, because I was 10, a lot of what was going on, yeah.
And I would like for my liberal flag to fly high right now, but I'm going to say this, and I don't think I can fly it. The news was all about this as well.
Yeah.
And the news was telling a very different story about what was going on in South Central than this movie.
Right.
And I found this more engaging than the news because the news seems sort of two-dimensional, creating villains out of whatever they could, as opposed to this movie, which was at least more entertaining, if not like more empathetic and told a broader story.
And this movie, I think you could argue, has villains, but it's only because we didn't see them as 10-year-olds and then them as 17-year-olds. They are just on the outside of the characters we've been following. You could tell this same story about the Bloods who end up killing Ricky. And you'd be like, oh man, how tragic for them.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, because, I mean, I think so much of this story is what the real villains are so far removed from the location of this story. And so we don't even see them. I mean, whiteness is hardly addressed in this movie at all. There's like one white cop who hardly says anything, but all of these problems are very easily traceable to the larger white community.
The other thing, too, talking about 10-year-olds, is that I read a lot about this movie over the course of the last week. Because have we talked about how we accidentally did a 30-year anniversary of movies?
No, this is I think every week I'm like, we should talk about that, and then we do not talk about it.
So there's a ton of articles about this movie in its 30th anniversary, and so many articles are written by 40-year-olds who were 10.
Yeah.
And who their parents took them to see this movie. And they knew that it was rated R. They knew that there was sex such as it is. And they knew that there was violence definitely such as it is. And the parents took these 10-year-olds to see this movie. All these 10-year-olds were like, there is no way I would have ever been allowed to see a rated R movie before.
Yeah.
But my parents took me to this because John Singleton made them. Because we had to go see this movie. And I think that's going to be such an important part of this discussion tonight is why would parents feel like compelled to bring their children to see this movie about like something that they could see by looking out their window.
We will get to that and so much more when we come back after this message. Boyz n the Hood is a story about the inner city violence of the 90s, something I am sure, without checking, we have figured out the solution to by now. I'm going to reach into my big bag of 91 tricks and guess that we solved this one with more policing and longer jail terms in the intervening years. That has to have done it. In the movie, we follow Trey and half-brothers Doughboy and Ricky as they each try to survive and thrive in an increasingly desolate urban landscape, blighted by redlining, gang violence, predatory businesses, and a complete paucity of hope. Like a Shakespearean tragedy, we can see the end coming, but it can't inure us to the human pain as Ricky is gunned down in the absolute prime of his young life. The cycle of violence continues, and we are left to ponder if getting out is the only hope left. So, gentlemen, I ask you this. As 90s as it can feel sometimes, does Boyz n the Hood almost feel like it's from an even older era? With its deconstruction of male behavior and meandering, borderline plotless pacing, could this movie hang out with a lot of the ones we watched for 1975?
Yeah, I think I did not expect such a hangout movie. For sure. Probably because of 1991. But like it's so clear Singleton is looking to like Your Americans Graffiti. And to be like, what if I got to do the same thing with my neighborhood and show how these kids are just hanging out and growing up.
There are scenes in this that reminded me specifically so much of Dog Day Afternoon, those long scenes towards the middle where people are just hanging out and having lengthy conversations.
Right.
But yeah, totally, Mike. Is this not like the Black Linklater movie?
Yes.
Like there are scenes where like it's very tense and we don't know what's going to go on tonight. It's nighttime and everybody is in their hydraulic fueled vehicle.
Yes.
And these four gentlemen take time to talk about if God is a man or a woman and if there's a God at all. And they spend a solid 6 minutes on it. There is no like, well, it's not Train Spotting or Trey Spotting. Where, like Cuba Gooding Jr. is just on. Saw that coming. Cuba Gooding Jr. is just on some like bank robbing mission, right? It's just hanging out. And these 6 minute conversations are, I think, crazy.
Yeah, and so often when people are like, I can make my characters hang out, we've talked often and frequently about the Whedon effect and how bantering and annoying it is. But these people are talking and it feels real and interesting. And I mean, recently watching Mass Midnight, there is lengthy conversations about what happens when we die like these boys, and it is not interesting, and it is not that realistic. And
But did it strike you as, it doesn't feel improvised, but did it strike you as overly scripted in that fake? Did it strike you as, this is not...
it feels like bullet points.
No, there were several times where I
Like
almost...
Curb?
I almost want, like they give them bullet points and then say, talk about this. Yeah, there were times where I felt like it was that, or I wondered if he often used a trick where he was like, we're kind of just blocking this scene right now.
Oh, we're not filming right now,
Right.
guys.
And let me tell you one scene where I think it definitely happened. There's a scene where Trey and his dad are like pumping iron, and they both have the least amount of weight I've ever seen anybody lift in my
It felt
entire life.
very realistic.
Lawrence Fishburne, who must be so strong, is lifting like the bar and then like 2 pounds on either side. And, the
And
kid,
Trey has a Q-tip.
dude, I can't believe they make weight. This is like the size weights they make for old ladies when they're like also in the pool.
But they still put on wife beaters so they
Yeah.
can see the muscles ripple as they lift.
And
Well,
I would-
they didn't have weight technology. Didn't get far enough to put more weight on yet.
But I think what was really going on there
wait.
was, I think, especially because this
Child
is one of the
choreography.
scenes with a child actor, I think this is one of the scenes where he might have just been like, yeah, we're just kind of going through the motions here. Just say the lines so that we make sure that we've got the cameras in the right place and everything. And I wondered if he did that with other, especially Ice Cube, who honestly always to me seems like he's reading off of the
Right.
script.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of personality and he's got a lot of charm, but it always feels like he's like a little stilted. He does a pretty good job in this, seeming a lot more naturalistic than most.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I watching this, I was wondered why 3 years later, another guy who didn't come from the industry, Kevin Smith, and his would blow up, and people are like the Kevin Smith, and everybody's doing that when Singleton, I think, is doing it. Is it because it's too naturalistic? Because I feel like he mixes that teenage and pop culture and the shagginess. Who did Slacker, Ryan?
Linklater.
Yeah. So I feel like he mixes those two guys' vibes really well, and I don't know why his career, like he feels like that filmmaker's filmmaker, but the people, the peons out there, the media illiterate, are talking about Singleton all the time.
Can't we do the America trick, though, where whenever you can't figure out what the origin or cause of something is, you just go, it's racism? Like, isn't it because this is a black movie that it doesn't get the same credit for having that hangout vibe to it?
But-
Probably.
Yeah, but
Yes, certainly.
Probably.
I think if you're watching this, you could see that, like, about halfway through this movie, you're going to notice that, like, Linklater is either doing literally nothing or way too much, right? Like, he's moving his camera a ton and just, like, getting into, like, these sweeping zooms, which are actually rare, or shooting this like it's a TV show. And I don't think that he would shoot this like a TV show unless. And I think that unless is, I just want to watch these characters or these actors act, you know? And
His hand is
I
a
don't know
little
if it
heavy
wa-
at times, right?
sometimes, yeah, but, like, when it's
Wait,
not.
I'm sorry. You said Linklater. Are you talking?
Yeah, but
mean
you meant Singleton.
I meant
right?
Singleton,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Luckily, I hang out with my parents a lot, and they never say what they actually
Yeah,
mean
it's always
to
the
say.
opposite
So
name.
you just have to
And
figure out,
Singleton
like,
is the
yeah.
exact opposite of Linklater
So
in a
you
lot of
just
ways.
use context to figure out what proper noun people are really talking about.
But if they weren't given bullet points, then they were allowed to. There was something going on where he was just
Right.
like, I can't set up crazy camera angles. I have to just watch them play, you know. And that happens so many times where there's so many reactions to things that feel for the first time, or you know, like they're not rehearsed, or there's so many one-offs that catch the actors, like especially Ice Cube will say something that will catch the other three
Yes.
off guard,
Right.
you know?
Man, I can tell there is something about him that doesn't quite translate to film.
Yes.
That to hang out with this guy, he must be like one of the most easygoing, funny.
Just run the room.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And there is just something about it that doesn't find its way totally onto film, but he steals like almost every scene he's in, and yeah, he causes the other actors.
But
to
for
break.
someone,
And
go ahead, Mike.
I was
sorry.
out of the big three, he's a bastard. Like, he's a dickhead more than Trey and Ricky are, but he is magnetic in a way.
Oh, yeah,
so
dude.
you get why people want to hang out with him, and he's the
Oh, you're
like,
not
leader.
Who's the kid from Game of Thrones that everybody hates?
Oh, Joffrey.
Oh.
You're not Joffreying him. You're
No.
not like, you son of a bitch.
No,
I
no,
hate
no.
you. You're so well written that I hate you even more. Like I want to hang out with him. Like, you understand what his draw is for all the other
that
characters.
part where he gets out of the car to go like walk over to Ferris and shoot him, like it's in the middle of this tragic cycle of violence, and as the audience you feel so complicit because some part of you can't be like, this guy's bravura, to steal the Dune term, like this guy's badassedness is such a draw, even though it's so tragic and awful right now.
Which, I mean, just screams Death Wish. Just screams that he knows, like, where he came up and, like, I'm going to party, quote unquote, for as long as I can because I know it won't be long.
Right. Good time, not a long time. I think that's one of the magics of this movie is the casting of our big three. Is they are archetypes of the I'm going to football, I have the kid early, and I'm going to make it the I got to get out of here. And the gangbanger that the news told us everybody was, and they are so different on the surface, but you can see how their similarities are actually there because of those hangout scenes. And I think the three actors do such a good job at embodying we're pulling apart from each other, but they're still always coming back.
Well, can we talk about Trey, who's in the middle?
Please do.
I think that Ricky is the best Ricky, right? Like he's such a fucking football nerd. Like the only time I'm not taking care of my kid is when I'm
just
watching
a golden retriever.
You can hear him watching football highlights, probably of himself, like in the background. And then we've got Doughboy, who is so very Doughboy, and like just to the point of stereotypes. I think for both of them, I think that they both are just on this side of stereotype. Where does Trey land for you guys? Where does Cuba's performance land for you guys?
I mean, to me, it feels like he's straddling the two worlds, you know? Like, I mean, that he sees what being in one world is like, right? He goes out to avenge Ricky. He's the one who, like, calls for avenging Ricky.
Meet me at my house in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and he wears the blood of Ricky for the rest of, like, that night, right? Yeah, he goes to sleep.
I think he sleeps in it?
Yeah, he sleeps wearing the blood of Ricky. And so he is anointed in that lifestyle, but he does ultimately reject it because I think, in maybe the simplistic understanding of the movie, he does have foundational parental love that has instilled like a hope in him.
And those parents say that. His dad in their first scene say like, you have something your little friends don't have. So like it's so interesting to watch him. It's
Daddy
clearly his dabbling into that world is almost just a rebellion against Daddy Fishburne. And because he's surrounded by it and your life is more than just who your parents are. But it like anytime he's like, well, I'm going to go hang out with Doughboy and the boys, you could just see Fishburne be like, if I say him no, he's just going to go harder. But like, what the fuck?
But you know,
it seems like it's hard to be a father.
Yeah.
Nah, come on.
Good luck to you, my friend. I have to say before we close out this question, to put it in terms of this is like a 1975 movie, that is for us extremely high praise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about what we all thought about the movie in the intro. The hangout, like noticing the hangout stuff of it, you know, like watching this movie a bunch as a kid and then going through the 1975 season with you two and then watching it again was crazy eye-opening. And just how I never ever felt this director's pressure to move the plot along or give us the message that he thinks we need. There's a couple of scenes where like we might talk about where he might have fumbled, but I think he fumbled. I think he fumbled back into himself.
Fumbalaya.
I cannot believe how this movie was. And then like you shoot it in a Hollywood way and you put some Hollywood music in the background and you release it by a studio and it's a huge hit. But for the most part, this is just a 1975 dirty ass shit movie, just like they made back then.
Because it's a small story ultimately, right? Like, I mean, that's what I think. That's what the genius of it is that you have time to show the community that these boys belong to,
an ensemble piece, but like a small movie.
Focus,
you know?
Yeah, and because really, what it's about is about this one kid with so much promise who is just about to make it. And then he dies. And then his brother who avenges him and also dies. But because the scope of that is actually very small, it gives them time to like really build up the emotional stakes. That scene where like Ricky is brought back to the house, dude, I had my finger on the button. I wanted to fast forward so bad just because the raw emotion of that scene was very, very difficult.
I know that my mother loves me way less than she loves Ricky. He's dead.
Yeah,
let's bring her back to the house. And let's see what happens. That's fucking fucked up. The other thing, too, Greg, based on what you're saying, is to have Trey be our eyes into the story, you know, be our Charlie into the chocolate factory, but not just be this, like, vanilla idiot character, but instead have so many flaws and so many ties.
Oh, he's often a prick.
Yeah.
In a way that's so interesting.
Right.
Well, I mean, imagine like we're going to talk about Furious Styles, I promise, soon. But imagine if this movie had been about the origin story of Furious Styles, because this is obviously a guy who like put himself back together a little bit. But I bet he had all of these.
Oh, when he was
awards.
17, when he knocked up Reva, I bet he was a piece of shit.
When he decided he wanted to go by the moniker Furious Styles.
That wasn't his given name?
No. His first name is Jason. Does that change the movie for you?
Yeah. I don't respect Jason. But Furious.
Or any of his Argonauts. But we are going to get to talk about Mr. Furious later. But until then, stay tuned.
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore. Gotta be the number one reason to go to South Dakota. But I think anyone who's ever been to Mount Rushmore would agree with me when I say that the second you actually see it, you're like, this has just bored the shit out of me, and this is a waste of my time.
Oh, I straight up stood there and looked at it for 4 seconds.
Yeah, right?
And I was like, where's my phone? I gotta play some Clash of Clans.
Because their heads are big, but you are so far away from them. So by the time, by the time the light hits your eye, it looks very tiny. Is how I think it works.
Like
Greg, why did they do like giant heads, but they're actual size penises at the bottom of the mountain?
Yeah, I don't know. That was weird, though. I thought you would want to have those big presidential dongs just sticking out there, showing how proud America is. Who do you think is our most strapped president?
Oh no, it's Lyndon B. Johnson, right?
Oh yeah, that's famously
He's got
true.
a hog.
Very good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was
and
going to say
Fillmore-
Fillmore.
Fillmore,
Because he can
butts.
film more.
and you know that it was Lyndon B. Johnson because he would show it to everybody.
Yes,
And
That's
so
where he got his last name, right?
Lyndon's B. Johnson. Then
But it's come time for me to get some new suits.
Well, man, I'm going to have to get me some new suits.
So I want to know what's fashionable, but not now. No. That'd be too easy. What was fashionable 30 years ago?
Greg, this is my favorite Rushmore. Can I tell you why?
You can't tell me why. Please do.
It's basically because we get to not just pick the fashion, but we get to put it on a president.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's
Yeah.
like a headband or pants or whatever, we're going to pick the president's head that it goes on.
Like these presidents have ever worn pants before.
And
God, Lyndon B. Johnson, can you put some pants
get out
on?
of here, LBJ. Why did we even put you on Mount Rushmore? Now we regret it.
Get that fucking monster hog out of here.
But don't go too far. Stick
Yeah.
around. All right, Mike, we're going to go to you first.
All right.
What do you think should be on our mountain of fashion?
1991 was the height of grunge sweeping through the mainstreams, and flannel, whether you're wearing it or
Yes.
it's tied around your waist, was everywhere.
I would say especially if it's tied around your waist,
Yeah.
right?
I wanted so bad to go with knitwear. These motherfuckers just wore sweaters all the time.
Well,
Yeah.
But
they
it's
were
gotta be
very
flannel.
cold.
Well,
They were
if
from
you re-
cold places.
If you remember, 1991 mostly took place in Seattle.
Right.
That's true.
So it was a lot
As a
colder
year.
there.
Southern California, we went from 90 to 92. And they got to have 91 all to themselves.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense. Well, I got to put it right up
Mike.
on the mountain. If it's good enough for J2, Son of Juggernaut, it's good enough for me.
Good J2 pull.
Greg with a very deep J2 pull. Well, I guess honestly, it's probably one of the surface comments you could make about J2, Son of Juggernaut, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if you've read it before. You may have just stared at the covers.
Just
Ryan,
have the poster on your wall.
who do you think, or what rather, do you think should go on our mountain of fashion?
Well, Greg, there's two types of cool people in 1991. There's the cool people who are wearing flannel,
Of course.
unironically, but unironically, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the people who dress the Looney Tunes up in the most gangster clothes that they could possibly wear and put those people wearing clothes on their clothes.
Yeah. So you'd get like you would see somebody wearing very saggy jeans, and then on the back of the very saggy jeans would be the Tasmanian devil himself wearing super saggy jeans, right?
You think he could spin around that fast if he had baggy jeans like that? I don't think so.
They would just fly off, right?
I can't believe that once again we let Mike start talking about the physics of the Tasmanian devil spinning around.
Jagging's at best.
Well, as somebody who spent a fair amount of time in 91 at Magic Mountain, and Magic Mountain was like the home.
Oh, yeah.
of
Oh, yeah.
These,
That's where gangsters went to live and die.
yeah. And is this at all offensive that the Looney Tunes, they weren't gangsters, the Looney Tunes, but they would just dress in this fashion?
Well,
right?
I have
Just
my
like
next
you and
one is-
Ryan in the same year, they were culturally appropriated.
Yeah.
My next one might be more offensive, Greg, and then you'll put that on the maybe pile. But
But this one's going right on the mountain. I really can't wait to see Thomas Jefferson just wearing a jacket that has like all the characters on
And then the
it.
hat is just Tweety Bird with a sideways hat that also has Tweety Bird with a sideways hat. That has Tweety Bird.
you guys saw these hangouts in Boys in the Hood, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And just imagine what you would have done. Oh, that guy has an Uzi. I have a Tweety Bird hat with a sideways Tweety Bird hat
Oh, you don't want to fuck with that guy.
on my Tweety Bird hat.
In one of the hangouts, one of the people hanging out was actually Yosemite Sam.
He's just there.
Yeah.
He made those young black kids uncomfortable.
All right, Mike. What else do you think needs to go on our 91 fashion mountain?
I'm gonna pivot and look at the fashion of the ladies for a bit, and from high couture to and like the runway down to like Courtney Love and the grunge baby doll dresses, my friend, with the poofier sleeves and then like almost mini skirt length dress, but one dress, and it's like either there's torn jeans underneath it or it's the very fancy like Cindy Crawford way, but these weird let's put women in children's dolls dresses for whatever reason was huge in 1991.
And who knows why? We're not going to go into why.
If you showed a kid who was born in 2010, 11 years old right now, about to hit their fucking prime, a picture of Cindy Crawford, do they even think she's hot? Is this like showing us pictures of the Renaissance ladies, those
Probably.
chubby ladies eating fruit?
Well, I
they
think
are hot, Ryan.
her bone structure is timeless, right?
Cindy goddamn Crawford.
Yeah.
She's got no curves though, and I guess curves are in right now.
Yeah.
So
That thick booty.
you know what? I bet modern day kids would be like, I don't feel like judging her body.
That's true.
Yeah,
Those jerks.
And how dare you show me that picture? Fuck you. How about
yeah.
that?
Like
trying to
why?
make me judge
Maybe
her body.
you should turn this around and ask yourself why you're approaching children and
At
showing
a
them
park.
pictures of Cindy Crawford.
Hey kids, you think she's hot?
Hey, Nick Nolte, get out of here.
I'm
I
going.
gotta go.
I'm going to put the baby doll dresses on the maybe pile, but the
Fair.
idea of putting Lincoln in one of these bad boys, I think
Lincoln
is
would
probably
rock.
going
His
to get it
gams notoriously
moved on.
attractive.
Ryan, what do you think? What else do we need to have on here?
I want to talk about specifically a company called Cross Colors and
wow.
more vaguely just Rasta colors in general. Rasta colors were green, yellow, red, and black or white. And they were everywhere. You could find them on the, what's that cute word for the blankets that people would cut a hole in the middle of? The drug rugs?
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
remember
like
those?
The ponchos.
The ponchos, yeah. But Cross Colors was this very important thing where we would bring all of the colors of like the African flag to the shoulders of leather jackets and things that look otherwise very tough.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Like almost paneled. Where it'd be
It was
like
a-
red panel here, black panel here, yellow.
it was
green.
a way of saying like this is a very like distinct cultural look, and we need to like treat it with a lot of respect.
And because we're black people, we have about 6 minutes to wear this before white people take it, and we never get it back
And they
again.
have it. They've taken
And
it
then
away.
that's it. That's it. Did you
Adrian
enjoy it?
Brody is now wearing it.
Oh no!
Do yourself a favor. Google Adrian Brody and Rasta. Because I think that that's the kind of thing we shouldn't forget.
For my birthday, Mike made me a video of a train coming out the screen with Adrian Brody hanging out as the engineer going brat. It was my favorite birthday present ever.
I would love to hear the meeting where he pitched that. You guys, I got the best idea.
Oh, he did not. He famously
Yeah.
did not.
Oh, yeah, he
that
just
was
did-
all
that was
improvised.
he
He's like-
soloed that.
I bet they won't let me do this hilarious best cutting edge comedy, so I won't tell them.
Well, now he's just another bit player on Succession. All right, Mike, I've got a couple maybes here, but I want a couple more. So give me another one for potential mountain.
This I'm counting this as fashion, and we've talked about the most famous owner of this for a long time. I'm gonna say blown out hair with the dark roots showing. It's the Cindy Crawford hair of like the golden, but like not 80s big and dumb, just like
Okay.
lioness mane in the back with the darker roots there, and it's somehow fucking pulled off.
Okay,
it's
so-
huge.
Big hair, dark
Don't
roots.
care. Big hair, dark roots. Don't care. More boots.
All right. I feel like I could picture that as something that took place in the 90s. Ryan?
Okay, so because Greg is sweeping through, like making sure that these are all babies, I'm gonna go back to grunge, and I am gonna say that fucking knitwear, because people would just wear like button-up sweaters that only grandmas would wear,
or sea captains,
So cozy,
or even like I think that '91 grunge was the beginner of sort of created hipsterism. Like, isn't it crazy that I'm dressing like an old person? And so many sweaters, so many things that your grandma would give you for Christmas that you would hate. Now it's cool.
It's so funny how, like, 91, we're all kids. Grandma gives us a sweater. We're like, die, bitch. Now, as adults, somebody gives me a sweater for Christmas. I'm like, I love you. I think the sweater I'm currently wearing
Make 100
right now.
more until you die, bitch.
All right. Well, I'm going to make a choice from these. Let's see. Baby doll dresses is got to be on there.
yes,
Because we got to do it for the ladies, especially considering what the next question's going to be about. And then, yeah, what did you call it? Besides Rasta, Ryan, what did you call it?
Color culture was the cross culture. Cross colors was the
Cross colors. Now, I know who's going to want to wear that, Jefferson, but I think we ought to keep him away from that. So let's get these outfits on people. First of all, let me give you your points, Mike. You're the baby doll, Ryan. All right. First of all, who's getting the baby doll dress? I got to know. Who's it going to be on?
Can we do that for Jefferson? Like,
That's
fuck
gonna be
him for being
Jefferson.
racist. Let's put him in a baby doll dress.
Okay.
Oh, even though we know there's better legs up on that, fine.
Okay, listen, we know there's better legs up there, but we're putting that aside because it's very important. How about the flannel?
I think Washington would look killer in a flannel. He's got
Isn't
the
that-
hair.
I got to interrupt here and say, isn't that total Abe Lincoln vibes, a flannel? Right? Rugged.
I think Lincoln wears it all as a shirt, and Washington wraps it around his waist.
Okay, well, I'm putting Abe next to flannel. The Looney Tunes look. This is
else
probably
is on this
another one
fucking mountain?
Jefferson's going to try to worm
he
his
would want
way
it
up to
so
the front.
bad.
to get.
You already
Jefferson-
get a baby doll dress.
He's wearing a dress, though, yeah.
Okay, I would move the dress, and I would put I would give him the Looney Tunes, but have like Hamilton and the other guy who's the Burr have them in the '91 urban clothes on his shirt.
Firing at each other?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's very good. And then, well, that's everybody. So, historically on the mountain, we will remember that there's Abe Lincoln wearing a flannel. Looney Tunes, Hamilton, also on the mountain, and Burr wearing the cross culture. And then in a baby doll dress, Jefferson.
Wow, a lot of presidents got kicked off this mountain for Burr and Hamilton, and I love it.
Some of them got moved off. Honestly, I don't think that they have played well recently. People are way crazier about Hamilton.
I gotta say,
true.
if there was a Rushmore of Rushmores, this one would be on it.
Yeah, it would be definitely one of them.
Can we get a picture of this on our next batch of shirts?
Of course.
Yeah, just say yes, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, totally.
Consider it done.
Well, man, I'm gonna have to get me some new suits.
That as well. When we come back, one more of our very interesting questions. Angela Bassett, Tyra Farrell, Regina King, Nia Long, and Alyssa Rogers. What's this film's relationship with women? Is it commenting on young men's view of women, or does the film itself have an issue?
I'm going to put this, it wants to be commenting, and then Tyler Durden theory, it gets lost in the film's not taking Doughboy and Trey to task and Ricky of how they treat women. It wants to, like, these are strong female characters, but then the movie also forgets to maybe spend time with them and to see what their life experience is like at all.
Is it the movie's... If the movie turned around and was like, hey, you should definitely treat them better, and then they like learned a lesson, is that what
No,
this
I don't
movie
want
wants?
that, but like we don't know any interiority into any of the women.
What's the movie's title?
Boys into Hood.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so women just don't matter.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
That's
that
what
like,
you're saying.
this is a real... This is supposed to be like a real slice of life of what it's like to be out there in these particular streets at this particular time. And this is how people were talking to women.
Oh shit! Yeah, that doesn't bother me. It was
that part of it I don't think is what he has an issue with.
and I think it's actually pretty interesting to show. Here's how Doughboy is sexist, the most of the main characters, and then here's how Trey is sexist. He says, "I never thought I'd cry in front of a female before." Like even our good boy Trey says shit like this. And then Ricky.
But what happens after Trey says that?
I don't
He
know.
has sex.
He has sex.
He has sex. So maybe you
That's
should
how
cry in front
Trey
of
was going
females.
to have sex. Yes. Well, it's not.
Well,
cry-
bullying
like
her
that-
about her religion didn't work, so I guess I should try to manipulate her in a different way.
My favorite part is when they finally agree to have sex, and she takes the cross, which is like on the front of her, so it's like between her and
Which you don't
Trey.
want to see.
And then she scoots it along the chain away from them. Jesus, hang on one second here. Let me get you.
Jesus,
let
stop
me get
taking
you
this
out of the
wheel.
danger zone.
But I do think that Trey is enough for us. Like, he treats women poorly in this movie, specifically Brandy, right?
Yeah.
A little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
his mom, but specifically Brandy. And then he stops. Trey is the one who realizes, because maybe Furious is his father, that like this is probably not the way to treat people. And then he is open and honest with her and has way more sex in this movie than Doughboy does. As far as we know, Doughboy is a virgin. And
Yeah,
I totally
dude.
like I wouldn't be surprised if Doughboy was just like, actually, no.
He's got
no
big
one's ever had
incel
sex with
energy,
me.
doesn't
Yeah,
he?
absolutely.
He's like violent.
He is the like the hood incel.
Well,
He
I
never
guess we
stops
don't know.
talking. Go, Mike.
We see Doughboy go to jail when he's 10, and then the
Uh-huh.
next scene they're welcoming him back. So we don't know if he was in gangs in like are we just assume he's been in and out his whole childhood then?
Yeah, because I got the feeling like that this barbecue isn't his getting back from getting arrested from
that time that we saw.
No, it's like that was the beginning of his being in and out. Yeah, and so now this is just another time he's out. But yeah, I think he's been associated with gangs the entire time. But yeah, the only thing you ever hear him say to a woman is like, "Shut up." And then the rest of the time he's like, "Girls are so dumb,
Yeah.
and you should never talk to a girl." And I don't like girls, right, everybody?
Don't I not like girls?
But I do think that it's still okay to fault the movie for not showing that you can show that, but for failing to show the experience of the women in the environment, or to fully like reckon with any of those characters. They're more because aren't they kind of rendered almost background in a lot of this, despite the fact that they're played by some of our greatest actresses.
But if John Singleton wants to make a movie, and I'm not arguing with you, but I'm just saying John Singleton wants to make a movie about how this is the way that men treat women.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to show how they all get destroyed by their environment in that way that they treat women. And so much, in fact, that I'm going to name the movie Boyz and Not Men in the Hood. Is this doing enough to show that like this is all terrible? This is all everything is terrible.
I definitely think the movie's saying literally everything is terrible. The only I don't want the message where, like you said, Ryan, turning around and be like, "Isn't that bad?" But the closest the movie comes to saying it's furious. Furious at certain points just stops and be like, "Hey, Ricky, hey Trey, you know this is my message, the whole message of the movie, right?" And so I guess if you have a character who's already doing that, you could slip in of women are people.
There's a Furious point too, and I know we're going to talk about Furious too, but Furious has to do something that none of these other boys do because he's a man. Where Reva, played by goddamn Angela Bassett,
seriously
says, "I'm about to make a scene, so you sit the fuck down."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Okay," and you can see him weighing all of his options, but he's not like, "Listen, bitch,"
right where all the boys would be, except for I'd say Golden Retriever Ricky. His sexism is so interesting because he doesn't call women hoes and bitches to their face. He doesn't say they're all stupid.
He just lets them raise his
constantly ignores his mom and his baby mama.
Right.
As she comes in, is like, "You have to get something for the meal I'm cooking you," and he's like, "Please get out of the way. I'm trying to watch this commercial." But I do have to say, Reva is a good example because she says something that I think is the most like pro-feminist message in the entire movie, which is like, "Furious, thank you for raising our kid, but you are just doing what society has told you is enough."
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah,
you're still not doing really enough. You're just doing what society has deemed enough because men are asked so little that to simply be a presence in your son's life, you feel like you need so many congratulations.
And that's a crazy point because Furious walks around with this swagger. And part of that swagger is, I stayed in my son's life.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like he does get
and
chips for that.
Insecure just did an episode about this.
Her saying that is a bookend to him saying to young Trey, "Look how your friends will turn out. They're not going to have anybody.
Yeah.
You have me." And so he's still kind of fucked up because Trey still starts to go down that path because he does just think being there. I mean, nope, we're getting too much into Furious. Not going to do it. I'm not going to fall for your tricks.
You want me to talk about Furious, but I won't.
Mike,
Very good, Mike. Way to turn it around. Who of the women, who does the best, who turns in the best performance? Because again, we have some of our greatest female actresses.
I want to give it up to Tyra Farrell, who in the beginning of the movie is basically as coked out as one of the neighbors who lets their kids run into the middle of the street. And then when we come back, when we come back 10 years later, she sort of has her shit together. Maybe it's because of Ricky. Her and Ricky do wear maroon and gold when the USC recruiter comes over. Like, I love how they put the football colors on when that guy comes over. But I think she does a good job mostly of saying why it's awesome to have a son like Ricky and why it's really shitty to have a son like Doughboy. She's not putting in the work for Doughboy.
Yeah, she's wrote him off and is like, well, I'll put all my energy into the good one.
They got a real Faramir energy, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, as soon as Ricky dies, Doughboy's like, shit, dude, I know exactly what she's gonna say.
Yeah.
She's gonna be so pissed that the good one died, the bad one.
2, 1. Oh, you're saying it. You're saying it.
And you're hitting me, and you're blaming me. Okay.
And
he
goes Legend of Dewey Cox, where the dad always screams that. Yes.
Wrong kid died.
One of the most heartbreaking moments in this movie for me as a kid was when Doughboy just wants to get his nephew.
Right.
Just let me get him away from his father's corpse. And he's so untrusted and so blamed for the death that, like, he is just hit and slapped instead of just let me get the child away from his father's corpse.
Because he's really the most tragic character, Doughboy, right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, this is so fucked up. What we're doing is so fucked up. And he can't stop himself from doing it. There's that part where he's like, man, people just want to shoot. Like, they just want to pop off their mouths and they just want to shoot. And someone's like, that's you, Doughboy.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's me. That's totally me. Man, it's like the tragedy of being like, I'm not blind to this.
Yeah, glimmers of awareness.
I see this, and it sucks.
But that's how they make their decisions. Ricky and Trey make their decisions based on, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And Doughboy is like, well, I know what my fate is.
There's no way out of here. Yeah.
Die a hero or die a bitch, but I'm going to die, and I'm going to die soon. And Doughboy can't read chirons like we can. He dies in 2 weeks after this movie's over.
He had no idea.
Well,
if he could
I
just
think
read that.
There's no better legacy than starting with a let's talk about the ladies question and then ending with just talking about all the male characters again. When we come back, it's time for trivia. You heard the robo. You heard the robot. You know what time it is. It is time to do trivia. Gentlemen, ring in by saying your name. Ryan.
Yes.
Make sure you let me finish all the instructions and reading the question. Some of these are lengthy, so I can get maximum ha-has. All right. What did the actors never know was coming so that their reactions would be real?
Ryan.
Mike.
Ryan.
Gunshots.
Shoot.
Okay.
That's some come and see shit.
Is that cool? Directors do this a bunch.
Mike.
Ryan.
This movie is good forever. So yes, it's cool.
Mike.
No, you hired actors. Let them act. It's okay if they acting.
I'm starting to get a little tired of these stories where people are like terrified so that we can see their very real reactions on screen. That's not acting. That's you terrified people. You're not allowed to do just anything because you're directing a movie. Like, you don't have the rights to do whatever you want to these people.
That scene where those 4 Chicago Bulls, after where they're all looking at everybody's cars, and those 4 Chicago Bulls go back to their car and pull an Uzi out. I thought that I had my volume at a reasonable level, and they pulled that gun out, and I ducked just like everyone else did.
Yeah.
It was so loud.
Uzis are loud, you guys.
Uzis.
You know, this movie, we don't talk about it much on the show, or we haven't been, but the music direction or like the sound direction of this movie is very good because the quiet parts are quiet. And then when somebody starts firing a MAC-10 into the air,
you feel
that
it.
part's loud.
Like, there's a scene where Brandy is trying to do homework.
Yeah.
And there's a gunshot. She's like, fuck.
That's one of those real flinches we've been talking about.
Yeah. Trey is told to rake leaves off his dad's lawn. What is notable about these leaves?
Ryan. They're orange.
They're orange. Mike, what do you say?
Mike, yeah, I mean, leaves don't really fall like that in California.
Yes. Mike. There's no trees like that on that whole street. There's like a couple palm trees, but there's no trees to produce those leaves.
So Furious shook those leaves down.
Got to teach a kid somehow.
I seriously hope somebody got fired for that. 1991 is the year the movie was released and partially set, with the first part being set in 1984. What movie and its sequel were released in 1984 and 1991? Ryan.
Terminator.
And?
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Right. Yeah, boy.
Damn.
What is Dookie's constantly sucking on pacifiers based on?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Maggie from The Simpsons?
No. Mike.
Mike. General babies. Just babies being out there in the streets.
I'm General Babies. No, the actor really did that to get off smoking cigarettes, and John Singleton thought it was cool.
It's probably scared so many white people. They're sucking on pacifiers.
I find that disturbing to look up and see a dude just sucking on a pacifier.
I assumed it was like hearkening to like rave culture is a common.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, very rave energy. Who turned down the role of Trey Styles to focus on his TV show?
Mike.
Ryan.
Mike.
William Smith.
One Will Smith.
Mike.
It was kind of, he was considered for it. I thought turned down just sounded better.
But later he would work with who played Brandy. She was Lisa on Fresh Prince, and she was great in that.
That was one of his longest relationships on the show.
Well, congratulations.
I had the fattest crush on Lisa growing up.
Really?
Oh,
Over
yeah.
Tyra Banks?
Was she on that show too?
Oh, she worked in the college store that
I
he
don't
worked
remember
at,
that.
selling college merchandise. God damn, Tyra Banks.
That's why you have
God.
such a collection of college merchandise now.
Yep, it just says college.
In so many ways. Goddamn, Tyra Banks. Singleton's Oscar nom made him the youngest to ever be considered. How old was he?
Ryan.
Ryan.
31.
No. Get ready to be more depressed than that. Mike?
35.
No, that'd be
Ryan.
depressing. Ryan.
28.
No, he was 24.
That would have been my next guess.
Who did he unseat? Who had been the youngest nominated?
Mike. Steven
Mike.
Spielberg.
No, sir. Not Steven Spielberg.
Ryan.
Ryan.
Anna Paquin.
It was Orson Welles.
Wow. Is that not the new coming of the guard or what?
Yeah, right? I mean, anytime you can like replace Orson Welles in anything, even if it's like a pee commercial, I think that's pretty impressive.
I want to see John Singleton's pee commercials.
Commercial for urine?
In
You gotta do it.
In 1980, Orson Welles narrated what hugely successful made-for-TV adaptation of the 1975's James Clavell novel Shogun?
Mike?
Mike.
Transformers?
No, sir, not Transformers, although he was the narrator in that, too. Or no, he was like Unicron's voice?
Yeah, he was Unicron.
What is the question?
I didn't know the question, so I just said a word.
In 1980, Orson Welles narrated what hugely successful made-for-TV adaptation of the 1975 James Clavell novel Shogun?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Shogun?
Shogun!
Ryan.
That's fucked up.
Who did Singleton want in the movie before they started feuding with Ice Cube?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Dr. Dre?
No, Mike.
Eazy-E?
Well, okay. It was all of NWA. When he fell out with NWA, they were supposed to be in the movie, and then John Singleton was like, that's going to be awkward. So that's why there's like an Eazy-E looking guy in the movie.
Yeah. Is that Chris?
Seriously wearing an Eazy-E costume. So I think you should both get a point
Mike.
for that because
Ryan.
that was part of it. Ice Cube owns the car he drove in this movie. What type of car is it?
Shit.
Ryan.
Guys got to know cars for the Greg shows, Ryan.
A 1981 Porsche Deluxe Ford Chevy.
Just saying Porsche was good. Mike, do you have a guess?
1989 Porsche.
It was a Chevy Impala. Come on, there's not really nice cars in this movie, guys. There's not going to be a
Are
Porsche.
Porsche nices? Okay.
Yes, Porsche.
Are Porsche nices?
Oh, Jesus.
Greg.
I'm fat, so I burp and fart.
Sorry, I just have to spend some time with the soundboard. I'm feeling very frustrated right now. All right. What type of car does Trey drive?
Ryan.
Ryan.
That is a Volkswagen.
Hell yeah. VW Beetle.
Ryan.
Good job, Ryan. Are we Beatles guys? Are we Beetle guys?
Ryan.
Yes.
Ryan.
Do you mean music or car?
I mean the car.
No. They were invented for Nazis by Nazis.
Oh, come on. Every car.
They're fin bin.
Every car.
Mike.
What do you say, Mike?
They're adorable. I love them. More cars should have
Yeah.
whimsy.
Yeah.
Mike.
More cars should have
More
whimsy.
Nazi should be whimsical, is what you're saying.
Try to
true.
find a major auto manufacturer in the 1930s and 40s that didn't build cars or build planes and trucks for the Nazis. Even Ford did, because Ford factories were commandeered by the Nazis. Any hoozles. John Singleton pitched this movie to Lawrence Fishburne on the set of what 1986 kids TV show?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Ryan.
Because Lawrence Fishburne was what? Sheriff?
No, he was Cowboy Curtis.
Cowboy Curtis, yeah. Walking along train tracks to see a dead body and title cards that tell us the fates of our lead characters are allusions to what 1986 movie?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Stand By Me, directed by Rob Reiner.
Stand By
I said the
Me.
director to hope that you guys like me more.
I like you less.
You know what?
Ryan.
I like you more. Who wrote the short story The Body that Stand By Me is based on?
Mike.
Ryan.
Mike.
Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Mike.
Ryan.
Ryan.
From the book Different Seasons.
Oh, damn. Is that true?
Fuck you. Don't give him
Holy
what you don't even know
cow.
if it's true. What if it's
I
not
think
true?
I think it probably is, Mike. That's one of his collections of short stories. Skeleton Crew, that's another one.
Apt
If It
Pupil was
Bleeds,
another
that's
story.
another
Also,
one.
Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption was also another.
Boom. Ryan answering questions literally nobody asked.
My biography.
Stand By Me. Sound off.
Ryan.
Mike.
Ryan.
Not a good movie.
Mike?
One of Rob Reiner's lesser movies in that era. It's kind of stupid. It's kids cursing, and that's a lot like grandma's rapping. A little bit of it goes a long way.
Mike?
I find it heartwarming and love it.
Yeah.
Mike.
Kids cursing. Sign me up.
Although it did bring up the all-time question of Goofy's a person, but Pluto's a pet. What?
Considering we lived in super safe neighborhoods far from this setting, do you think we spent too much of our childhoods worried about the Crips and the Bloods?
Mike.
Ryan.
Ryan.
I think that South Central was a dangerous place. I think that the odds of me coming in, like running into a crypt or a blood, was next to zero.
Do you guys agree that as kids we were like kind of wrapped up in like if you were going to wear blue or red, you were like, watch out?
My
Yeah.
middle school banned Raiders and Kings, Los Angeles Kings equipment.
That's
a hockey team.
There was a type of shoe called British Knights,
Yeah.
BKs, and a lot of schools, a lot of just like white neighborhood schools in the suburbs banned them because Crips wore them as blood killer shoes.
And then they started talking about like should blue and red no longer be allowed in the school.
Those
The
are big
two
colors.
main colors.
Guys, stop watching 60 Minutes. Like, what are we doing here?
We may have contributed to that when we called 60 Minutes one of the greatest shows of 1991.
Iconic.
We
Iconic.
called it one of the most watched shows.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
different than greatest.
Wikipedia called it that, and we agreed. We nodded sagely.
We agreed.
Why did we nod so much that one night? Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it didn't make good. It
That was a
didn't make good
crazy
podcast.
night.
That was like the nodding podcast.
We just put some incense on and nodded till the night was over.
until we nodded off to sleep. That is the end of trivia. When we come back, a third and final question.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com. And it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye!
How truly integral to the movie and everything the movie is trying to say are both Lawrence Fishburne and Furious Styles? It's the Furious Styles question. Let's go off.
Mike.
All right, finally, it's about Lawrence
Woo!
goddamn Fishburne.
Bam!
Lori Burns Fish.
Yes.
I really like the acting styles of this movie. I do think that it's weird and it's a little awkward, a little amateur, but I
Yeah.
do think that
In a very endearing way, though, right?
right. I do think that John Singleton is trying to be like, what if we put a camera on the actual people?
But
Lawrence Fishburne is a fully trained professional actor
Yes.
who is acting circles around
Right.
all of these motherfuckers.
why I think that is a credit to the movie and Singleton knowing it is that all these boys in the aforementioned hood are acting. Like
Yeah.
they're all throwing different personas of what they're trying to throw out there, right? And Furious also has the persona, but what Lawrence Fishburne crushes is he so obviously sees himself in all of these boys, and is like, I don't have the emotional energy to do this for all of them, but I will try to do it for Trey at least.
I know, and that's why this movie is so amazing to me, is because John Singleton, as Greg, you said before, he was 24.
Yes.
What a jerk.
Is
I know.
somehow
It's sick to my stomach.
somehow in the middle of Trey and Doughboy and Furious. You know, like, he's obviously old enough and mature enough to make a movie, so he is struggling with the POV. And the POV is not white business. The POV battle in this movie is Furious over Doughboy.
Yeah.
And I could just imagine him saying, John Singleton saying to Lawrence Fishburne, I wrote this speech. Hey, man, we're at a billboard, right? And this is like one of the most infamous and famous scenes from the movie. Like, because a lot of people talk shit on the scene, but I think it actually is perfect.
I think there's moments in this movie you can talk shit on. I don't think that is one of them. He is an orator. The character himself is an orator and wants to run a room. So when people just walk over, they
you
make
watch
sense.
the whole every aspect of a black neighborhood walks, like every archetype walks up.
And now I'm going to tell you what I think about our neighborhood.
But I can still also see John Singleton being, I want you to read my script line for line when you act. But also saying, hey, Larry, I love what you're doing with Furious. Here's some I don't need any bullet points. Get the fuck out of here. I'm in front of a billboard, and it's time for me to fucking go.
And his message, Furious's message, is ultimately the most hopeful one, right? Because so many people are either like, Ricky is looking for a way out. For him, hope is somewhere else. Trey, that's the same thing with him.
And Trey's supposed to be the middle ground, and Trey is looking for a way out.
He just is a more realistic way out, I guess.
And Trey's mom, Reva, is also, she's basically out. I mean,
she was in a shitty apartment, got her master's, and then was at the like top floor, like in a suite.
The single bed, I think that's the same exact apartment that they used in Night Moves. Like, it's like, this is like the most expensive apartment in all of LA, and they occasionally like to just put a college student in it, or a woman who is still paying down her student debt.
At one point, she reached off screen and then brought back a cup of tea. Like, she has multiple butlers.
Just a butler off camera.
But so she has made it out, right?
Yeah.
Furious is the only one who's like, there can be hope here. We can do it here. I'm going to help people invest in homes here, not somewhere else. I'm going to preach the message of we have to improve this neighborhood right here, not go somewhere else. We need to make this place better, and we can do it if we can believe in ourselves.
I think that scene's so important because throughout this, like...
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Greg, that's a great point.
Nice.
Throughout so much of it, you're like, why did she send Trey there if she's also always worried about him? Why is Furious there? And then
was that a
scene...
lateral neighborhood or a worse neighborhood?
You know, one thing that happened, I think, in that is that the neighborhood got way worse in that intervening 7 years. You know, it's like it's kind of a rough place before that, but I think it's more like it is a couple of streets away from a really bad part of town, and then the streets get closer.
I don't know if you guys
closer.
noticed the camera hanging on the Reagan poster.
Yeah, dude.
About what is making the neighborhood work.
And
honestly, yes.
The dangerous guys in '84 were guys who were going to bully little kids and steal their football. There's not guns going off other places. There's definitely an escalation.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that, like, when everybody was just leading their normal lives, the world that they were in just got worse around them, like, irrespective of what they were doing.
Like,
because
they looked up and went, what?
Ronald Reagan. I really do think that, like, he's not just, like, giving the finger in that. It's, like, very much... That's a way in which...
You are the villain.
Yeah.
Not the guys in the Chicago Bulls costume.
Yeah.
It's you, Reagan, you are the villain.
And not the white cop and not even the black cop, because...
that black cop is pretty villainous.
That guy's pretty bad. But his whole deal is not half as bad as the sort of, like, cultural shift that took place between 84 and 91.
And when the black cop puts Trey against the car and makes him cry that one tear, you are, like, thinking, what did society do to this black cop? You know,
dude.
The black cop is there to he's a foil of Furious specifically, I think. This is showing like these are two older black dudes who are you going to raise them right and give them talks but give them enough leeway to make their decisions, or are you going to try to scare the kid into being better? And that's obviously what the black cop's angle is. And who's the same cop from before.
I don't
right?
know. I have to say, yeah.
Their 1-2 punch feel like the
I
same
don't-
partners.
I have to say, I don't think his idea is to scare these kids straight. His idea is to be like awful to them, and for it to be allowed because he's a cop, right?
And to feel power. Like this
He's
is
in a
this is
different
how
type-
I'm gonna feel. I can either
he's in a
feel
different
power by
gang,
like being
right?
a drug lord or by being
Yeah.
this
By
cop.
being a
That's how
cop.
what he thought.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to the furious billboard speech, because something happens in that scene that I found specifically crazy, which is Furious is a dedicated dad and a loving dad, but not a dad that I agree with all of his motives and motivations, right?
No, like when he asks his son if he's gotten a piece of pussy yet.
Right. Like that's not something that I would
That's
probably ask my son.
When he won't talk to him after he's come back with the day his best
That's
friend got shot.
That's the big one, is that he is coming back again with Ricky's blood, and Trey will live the rest of his life with Ricky's blood on his clothes. He will never change. But Furious closes the door on him, and I'm not saying, but you can't argue that Furious doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
Furious loves his son and wants the best for his son, and is doing things that he thinks will make his son better.
Mm-hmm.
But the billboard scene is crazy because it always struck me, because Furious is saying black money has to pay for all of this stuff, and we must cut white money out. And I don't think that is a good business strategy. I always thought that was a weird like isolation thing that Furious was doing until I watched it this last time, and I figured out what Singleton was saying. And it's these movies. It's the movies that he's talking about. The stories have to be told by black actors, with black writers, with black producers, with black directors. That's how we get our story out. And so Furious is doing it in the only way that he can, with we have to buy these houses so they can't buy us out. They can't gentrify us and blah, blah, blah. But no, forever before Boyz n the Hood, there was always a white hand on the mouse over all of these black stories.
And then the story becomes like, and even after this, right, the story gets reduced in so many of these movies to black and white relations.
Right.
Like that's the only story to be told. And like that
shit,
there's
man,
no...
Like even
independent-
42 focuses on Branch Ricky more than too
Yeah.
much.
Exactly. Like Harrison Ford, or how I call him, Bill Murray, is the hero of that movie. And no, black stories need to be told.
And in a way that, like, watching this movie reminded me of Their Eyes Were Watching God, because when Zora Neale Hurston wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, it was thought by, like, black intelligentsia at the time that you shouldn't write a story just about black people, that every story should be about how white people are actively oppressing black people, because more than just being art, it was supposed to, like, help further the cause of everybody, right? But she writes Their Eyes Were Watching God, a story just almost exclusively about black people as heroes, and black people as villains, and black people as failures, and black people as successes. And that's what this story is, right? Boyz n the Hood is about the interiority of black lives, and not just always the story about how they get oppressed by white people, how they get defined in a
But
lot of ways.
how actually they are totally living these lives with barely mentioning white people or seeing white people. Or like the other thing with the Eyes Were Watching God thing is to, like, you know what, if we're going to make black movies, they have to be Pursuit of Happiness. They have to star Will Smith,
elevate
Be so
people.
uplifting and
and they have to elevate just this one black character into
one of the good
the
ones.
white world.
Yeah.
Right. And here is how, the hood is terrible, and here's why it's great, and here is the true story of what is actually happening here. That is the movie that needs to be made. That's what Furious was talking about in front of the billboard.
That's the key, is that it's not. I think it's not trying to be like, here's why it's bad, here's why it's good. The true story of what you just said, I think, is the focal point. Is it has everything. Like I think these are some of the most fascinating protagonists because of that.
Right.
And the lack of acting, or the poor acting, whatever you want to say, is part of that. Is it wraps up in that it feels very real.
I totally agree. If you want to talk about it as like a time capsule of 91, or if you want to talk about it as if like this is what John Singleton wanted every second of it, this is what he actually wanted, I don't care. Either way, Boyz n the Hood is exactly the fucking pop culture bomb that 91 needed at that time and now. Like, I still think it's just as impactful now.
And
for sure.
In another, I don't know if he had just read Their Eyes Are Watching God, or if he likes Their Eyes Are Watching God, but in another way that it's like Their Eyes Are Watching God is that it celebrates just the like human interactions. In Their Eyes Are Watching God, so much of what's good about that book is people just chatting and because they're so creative and they're so funny and everything they say is like has so much character to it. And isn't that what we get in so many of the discussions here, that it's just nice to hear them talking about whatever it is they're talking about?
Watch walls. Watch how walls work in this movie. And when there's a barbecue and all of the walls are blocked off, there is literal peace and partying and happiness. There's a couple of problems, right? There's like sexism that maybe we should solve that they're working on.
The meat isn't being turned enough.
And there's the meat and like, where is the food?
Yeah.
Where is the food?
And who's going to get it first?
But for the most part, it is basically eaten. And when those walls open up, like if there's an alleyway where other people can get in, whether it's the cops or the Chicago Bulls wearers, that is where shit happens.
Ryan.
Speed round. Was Singleton a Jordan-hating Lakers fan, seeing as how all the so-called villains are dressed head to toe in Bulls gear?
That was a lot of Bulls gear, bro.
No, it's red, right?
Yes, Mike.
That's red.
Clearly, the way it works is...
I don't see color unless it's red, and I hate it. Mike is a bull.
You pick a color, and then you just, like, any team that has that color you're into. So you might be wearing a Raiders hat one day, but then a Detroit Tigers hat the next day? Does your head know what teams you're rooting for?
Your head does know, and it's pissed.
Yeah, hang on. We should just stick with one of these organizations. Singleton wrote this in college. Does that come across?
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike.
I forget we don't need to do this.
You don't really need to ring in.
Can I not talk right now? Go ahead, Mike.
I called on Mike.
He called on me. I'd say maybe that the shagginess throughout, and we said it works for sometimes, it doesn't sometimes. I think the last act is when you're like, oh, you were a college student when you wrote this.
In
for
what
sure.
way?
It is for how not Hollywood so much of this movie is, it turns into the most saccharine, sappy, Hollywood tropey at the end. And it bummed me out.
I totally disagree. I think that it did turn into more plot-based in the last act, but I still think I thought it was an organic, I don't know, like...
Strings
conclusion.
Swelled in a way they had never... It was Mr. Holland's opus level of
I don't
strings
know.
letting you know what's going to happen.
What do you want when Ricky died?
I have to say, the score in this was a little disconnected from the rest of the movie at times, and the score, I just never believed it. But I have to agree with Ryan here. I do think that everything organically set up to lead us to a more formulaic third act because something had to happen.
Let me point out an example. Ricky and Trey running on the fence after they see that car is the perfect example of comical farce and holy shit, are they going to die that I've ever seen in a movie. This is what their life is just what up? And also, we have to move now. I can't believe that this movie accomplished that.
I mean, it's a cruel joke. The idea that you'd be gunned down in an alley out of the back of a VW Jetta.
And they're just well, this is...
You were somewhere the night before?
Right, because we were somewhere.
Yeah, because you were next to somebody who got bumped into... bumped into somebody on purpose. Seems kind of senseless to me, everybody. I don't know if everyone else is thinking this. Is Doughboy a one-dimensional a-hole, or is there more to him?
No, I think that... I love his last scene. I know that I definitely agree with you guys when you say that there may have been some cue cards around the set. I see that, but I think that he is really doing this thing of I have to do this because I know that I don't have anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he sells that. And his shaking, there's just enough of a lip quiver of and tears that never spill but are in his eyes. And you can I'm furious, not Furious Styles. I'm furious and very sad. And I'm mad that I'm being blamed for this. And that he crushes that scene.
And that I am to blame for this.
Yeah.
And that also I'm I am swept up in events, but I'm also contributing to events. But I think that this is wrong, but I'm going to keep doing it. He's such a welter of emotion.
I love that last scene, or close to the last scene, where Trey gets out early, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Monster and Chris are still in the car saying, "What the fuck? Doughboy, please."
Right.
And then Doughboy's out there in the street just standing there, savoring every moment as if he's Scarface, and showing that difference, not just between Doughboy and Trey. Here's Monster and Chris saying we're already in the life, but fuck, man, don't you think we could do better in the life if we got the fuck out of here right now?
And there is something so timeless about that moment. That moment really to me feels Shakespearean. that moment feels medieval. That feels like warring houses. Like, no, I will take every drop of satisfaction over the ending of this life because, like,
even if that means my life.
Yeah, even if that means that I get caught up in it too. And even though, like, I'm too sensitive to be this kind of person.
Right.
Doughboy is
That's
too
the thing.
sensitive.
Yeah.
to
Is that
be like,
Doughboy is furthest away from Trey, but also exactly the same as Trey.
That's why Doughboy
that
is
Chris
like,
and Monster are the extremes.
right. The people in like fully in the life. That's why Doughboy is the bigger dick than Chris and Monster, because I think he is trying to constantly smother that sensitive part.
Yes, yeah, he's always trying to drown that part of him that's absolutely screaming. Like, I also want to get out. I also want to live a life.
But
of
he
the
also wants
mind.
people to know that he read a lot in prison, but he doesn't want to know. He doesn't want people to think he's a nerd. Like, you better respect that I read a lot, but don't like. But I still did read a lot. But like, don't judge me on that fact that I read a lot. But I did read a lot. Like, he's a very smart guy. He has no idea what his place is in the world.
I would love to see what Doughboy would have gotten on the SATs because nobody fucking asks. Nobody
Right.
gives a shit.
Oh
Right?
yeah. What's his name? His brother
Ricky.
Ricky got like a 710. Either a 700, he got a 710. I bet Doughboy got either a 200 or a 1400.
Yeah.
Well, that is the end of Speed Round. When we come back, awards and one recommendation. Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad. And perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody, keep watching them movies. Award season. All the boys and girls collecting together to see who wins awards. Ryan, you are our guy who knows a lot about Oscars. I know it was nominated at least for Best Director, but he didn't win. Did this take home any Oscars?
It absolutely did not, but it did take home the 1992's MTV Award for Best New Filmmaker, John Singleton.
Damn, okay, that's not bad.
That's when
I think
MTV was relevant.
Yeah. This is the exact type of movie that Hollywood has zero interest in. There's like, as we talk about it, like there's no white person that learns the error of their ways and then solves racism. So I don't think there's much in it for Hollywood awards. They'll make money off of it.
I mean, to me, this movie is the premier example of let's wait 5 years and then hand out awards, right?
Yeah.
Like, we have no idea where the tide is going. Hollywood always, or the Oscars, the Academy always wants it or always thinks it to be 10 or 12 years before it actually is. And so this movie could have swept the 91 Oscars in 96.
But they don't do it that way, fools.
Idiot.
So we're going to hand out our own awards. Now, 30 years later, the clarity of time has allowed us to figure out who is the best pound-for-pound performer in this movie. Mike?
This is what we're starting with?
We're starting pound for
Oh,
pound.
shit.
Greg is
I don't mess
absolute
around.
chaos.
Yeah.
I'm going to. We've talked. We said there's a whole segment of who the actor who acted Circles. But I'm giving it to first timer Ice Cube here. And maybe it's shock. The do two things at once is all we ask, and the level of that he did here, I was blown away by how good he is. After I've just recently rewatched 22 and 21's Jump Street. And
I did as well.
He is just a goofus. He's not an actor in that. And I was like, oh, shit.
Isn't it insane to find out that one of your NWA, from like your favorite 80s rap group, is now the old man sergeant in a cop movie?
Bananas. But at some point this kid had chops, and I think they are rough around the edges here, but I think he is great.
I love him here because there are times where he will say things. And I love this Ice Cube in 91, not the anti-vax, anti-Jewish Ice Cube. That
I'm
we have
really
today.
honing in on 91 Ice
Good. I'm glad that
1991.
we're saying that.
But he will he'll say things, and then the rest of his group will laugh or boo. They'll cheer or jeer.
Yeah.
And he'll be surprised.
Yeah.
And you never know what you're going to say when you're Doughboy, and you never know how people are going to react. And if they jeer, you could be like, "Fuck you, man!
Right.
I'm going to punch you."
Or just take it.
Or, yeah,
and be
yeah,
like, no,
just-
you
yeah,
guys
yeah,
are right.
yeah.
You rendered a pretty good verdict there. I was way out of line. Thanks, everybody. Ryan, is that also your pound for pound?
It's not. I thought Ice Cube did a good job, but I think that Lawrence Fishburne, I do want to point out once again the scene with him and Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett, I don't know if they ever worked together again. Lawrence Fishburne and Angela Bassett. Did she ever say that, that she was some sort of proud Mary and that she would not take any more of his shit? I don't know. They probably figured it out in the end. But in this restaurant scene where he is trying to be the rich person that she is now, but also the good father that he is now, I think that's what wins. Like, we can talk about the under the billboard speech, but I think it's him just trying to be like, I have so many things to say. I have so many ways to raise my son. And like we talked about before, not all of them are up to today's standards, let's say. But his conviction, I think, is what really wins him this award.
That scene has the set for that fancy restaurant. That is the most sitcom set in the entire movie. That's clearly like one of the bungalows that they have on Universal Studios. They just took all the furniture out of and then just like put 3 tables in there, and they're like, it's a restaurant now.
Just every once in a while, you hear a robot say, "Tea, please."
T2, please.
That's Judgment Day.
Ryan.
I am in judgment of that pound-for-pound performance, and I say it is Larry Fishsticks. Up next, it is Director Moment. Ryan, hit me with your choice for Director Moment.
So we talked about how John Singleton, at least in this movie, maybe when we get to Too Fast, Too Furious, he moves his camera around a little bit more. But
the
in this
sequel to this, because it was going to be Too Fast, Too Furious styles at first.
I can't believe you both brought that up, and I forgot to include it so far yet. But he has a character named Furious, and then later went on to make Too Fast, Too Furious.
When he does move his camera, there's a couple of things that are so ingrained in my brain. One of them is Trey realizing that Ricky is about to be gunned down. That's the kind of movement I'm talking about. But the one that will always stick with me, the one that I think is the most iconic, the one that he chose to make you question things, is where he basically puts a GoPro on a little kid's head and has that little kid run from the kitchen to the backyard into Doughboy's homecoming party. And I think that your first reaction, if you are Karen-esque, is like, what is that kid doing here? And then you realize how the thing that you're scared about the party is just that it's a lot of black people there, Karen. But really, it is a
family barbecue.
It's a family barbecue. You know, he puts it on that. It's that same way that that a kid will have a camera on their head when they go into the drug ring or the opium den, the heroin den that their parents also own. But the way he does it, it's the barbecue. And now we're forced to deal with, oh, maybe it's not bad for a child to be here. Maybe it's totally fine. Maybe that's just as good as the way that my kid grew up.
Again, it's okay for a kid to be there, provided the person is flipping the meat.
Yeah,
you gotta flip
you
the
have
meat.
to check the meat.
You don't just
bad
watch
barbecue.
If that kid is learning how to barbecue bad, then that's on John Singleton.
All right, Mike, what do you say? That's a pretty good one, Mike. I gotta say,
pretty good. I think it's the car scene we've talked a lot about, where it is just a hangout. They're all just hanging out, and then the escalating tension, and then it seems to be broken, and then the Uzi. I think the emotional beats of that. I think what he is good at, and this does show up even in goofy movies like Too Fast, Too Furious, of like, we're all hanging out. Movie. Yeah, John Singleton directed that, and not enough people talk about it. We're all hanging out, and then boom, this moment of tension is breaking what's just happening. And I think he sets up that whole thing, and that's what, how he differentiates himself from Linklater in the American Graffitis is being like, nope, now there's burst of violence.
I'm going to go with that because that moment was so affecting. And we talked about the sound design for this movie, but like it really, filmically, it's like, all right, this scene's over now. And the way the actors are like, that they're making like final remarks in a scene.
Right. Regina King even called the whole culture out. Like Regina King said, why do we always have to have guns at all of our hangouts?
And so
you would think, okay, so we're done then, right?
The language is of fade out. Like you are so ready for it to be another scene, and that's when the bullets come.
And then he uses the Uzi.
Ryan.
So Mike gets that one. Up next is cringe. I'm sure this movie provides us with more than enough cringe. Mike, what did you pick?
I wanted to pick something that wasn't like you could argue is supposed to be in the fabric of the film, like the sexism we talked about. I think the way this telegraphs Ricky's death is like, he says they should split up. He's playing the lotto. He's not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
It's all kind of a joke.
After he pisses.
He
has
pees.
a full-on piss on the wall.
He pees and then is like, let's split up. And like, you could see it in Trey's face. He's like, oh, he's going to die right now. Cause look at him. Like the movie and the actor are just being like, should I die right now? Cause I'm about to get out. And it disappointed me in a way that the movie did not. And it felt so
cringed.
False. And I cringed.
He's got big himbo energy in
Yeah,
this
for
scene.
sure.
It's like everything about the scene is indicating he's about to die. And so I think there's a little bit of dramatic irony there because the audience knows so much more than he does. But
He
it's
gets
like,
in a fucking fist fight with Doughboy. Like,
Yeah.
that's La Bamba. That he's going to die.
and it's like, dude, you know that there's a rival gang that you just recently beefed with. Please pay attention to your
Right. And
surroundings.
he's like, no, lottery, gotta
But you know,
pee.
he gets a real fixity of his attention gets fixed on something and he doesn't break from it. And he was deeply like into his scratchers and to his piss. And so he just sort of, I guess he just tuned out. But yeah, the cringe I think also in part comes because it's like, come on, he knows better than that.
And there
right?
are music cues because he's like, let's split up. Like, I'm like, come
you
on,
just
movie.
said let's
Was
split
that the
up.
Terminator 2 drum?
Dun, 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 dun. Come with me if you want to live. Ryan, what made you cringe?
All right, so I've tried to defend all of the treatment of women in this movie because I think that we already talked about that.
Yeah, boys will be boys, you said. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to
Are
get
women
shit
really worth treating
twice.
better?
I remember you said that too, yeah.
So the thing
Yes,
that
they are, Mike.
based on even after that, the thing that made me cringe is I don't like it when we do this with people who actually lived. When they're like, 2 weeks later, he shot Abraham Lincoln in a theater. But with fictional characters, with Doughboy walking across the street, and it says 2 weeks later, he died. He got murdered. That's the cringiest shit to me.
You could have just ended your movie. Well,
Just
imagine
tell your
that.
story.
Imagine that the last shot is Doughboy just walking across the street. Who knows what happened?
Yeah.
People would talk about that
we all
forever.
know.
We all know. That's the thing. We all know. And he has just said, I am going to get killed in no time over this
Right.
because the wheel just keeps going and I can't get out.
And
then the movie
Doughboy will be the focus. Doughboy made sure that he was going to be the focus of the next murder.
Right.
We know what's going to happen.
and he's literally walking out of the movie. He's walking like away from the audience. So like the filmic language is telling us he is departing.
And then disappears, which now filmic language is like overblown. This movie is, like we said, Stand By Me.
That's
And
the other
Stand
thing.
By
It's
Me
not
did
just
the
an
exact same
allusion
thing.
to
Like-
Stand By Me. It's the same thing
Yeah.
as Stand By Me. I'm going to give it to Ryan because that was a little over the top to be like,
2
Stand By
weeks later, he was murdered. Shut the fuck up, movie. We know.
Tell us something we don't know. All right, let's get to the specific awards for this movie. The snort, the unintentionally funny. Mike, what do you have for the snort?
We've said, I think that Tyra Farrell did an excellent job through so much of the movie. And the scene was pretty powerful. And I thought Ice Cube did a good job in the Ricky got brought home scene. But her Tasmanian deviling and slapping all over the place is when it elevated. It felt like a stage play level performance and was no longer like.
Is it playing to the rafters?
It's playing to the rafters, and man, it did not fit. Again, at this point, I think post Ricky death, I was just like, okay, movie to everything, and it made me literally laugh when she's just slapping him.
Oh, man, I wish I had that remove. Instead, I was just like
Yeah.
so agonized by... Because honestly, I do have to say, grief looks stupid as shit.
Right,
Grief
for
looks
sure.
like people swallowing their own snot and making noises like you've never heard somebody make
Shitting
before.
on the bed.
Shitting on the bed.
The other thing, too, is that maybe Mike is a different sibling than you and I are, Greg, but I would be the one to get hit. If I brought home my dead sibling, I would get hit.
Oh,
I'd
I'd be the dead sibling.
I'm the good one that dies. Yeah.
Greg and I are similar in that way.
fucking great for you guys.
Ryan, what do you think is the most unintentionally funny moment?
I do want to compliment the acting one last time, and I want to say that John Singleton did a good job, but I will agree with Mike that sometimes this movie does a lot, and it's when Trey has seen enough. I think one of the most iconic parts of this movie is when Trey has seen enough and he goes to Brandy's house, and it does lead to sex, so that's cool. But he flails limbs like a motherfucker.
He's Paul Rudd in Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is the opposite of paralyzed. just all of the limbs move constantly.
He's like on Bob's Burgers when Jimmy Jr. has to like dance it, like he feels it.
He's a Jimmy Jr.
Gotta dance on my feels.
I have to say, I'm going to give the point to Ryan. And obviously that's a terrible dance, but with the addendum, he does get laid.
Yes,
So-
he does have sex.
And that's the whole point of the movie ought to be, it's not when you look cool that these women like you.
Right.
It's when you show who you really are, which is probably a weird spaz.
Choke on your snot, throw shit in the bed is out.
Yeah, when you shit your snot in the bed.
And HM that I didn't say because I think the movie might agree with me is before the Uzi in that scene when the girl who's on Team Blood is just like, do we got to do this? And everybody's like, shut up. And I'm like, oh, come on. She was right. Like,
but that's what it is, right? There's always someone who's like, let's not do gang violence.
What if we were just all
like,
hanging
Shut
out?
up, you.
But I think that was the director saying, if I were to do easy answers to any of these problems, then you would all tell me to shut up.
Yeah, oh yeah. Nice.
Ryan.
Ryan, best fit.
There's so many that like come from people who
Big,
like,
bold choices.
work at the mall.
Yeah.
It'd be so great to work at the mall, but I have to go, Greg, with Doughboys. Black shirt, black pants, White Sox hat,
Raiders hat.
yeah, gold chain. That
this is because we
so
grew up
classic.
in the Los Angeles area
I
in
think it is,
1990,
but,
dude.
like,
we think that looks cool.
The Raiders is the only color that I will have, and the only color is silver.
Yeah.
The rest is black. I think that that has to be the most iconic fit from Boyz n the Hood.
So the Crips kind of get away with also wearing black, whereas the Bloods really have to stick to that red.
Yeah.
And I
That's a
think that
bummer.
makes them look a little
And
sillier.
the fact that they like, in order to be in the Bloods, you have to have those poofy shoulders.
Yeah.
You know, like the dancing Spanish salsa shoulders.
Mm-hmm. And I wish they didn't have to go everywhere by carriage.
Right.
I think it'd be a lot
That
cooler.
is
Just
rough.
always saying Toro everywhere they go.
Mike, what do you think is the best fit?
I think in a similar vein of this isn't one of like the flashiest ones. It is great then and very 90s, and you could pull it off now. It's Regina King at the barbecue, and it is the like overalls with the deep U, and then just like a white shirt and the big gold earrings. She fucking looks great, and it's super 90s. It's I just took best fit of like, yes, I enjoy this outfit. You don't look like a clown.
Yeah, right?
Mike.
I'm gonna go with that because it's at least a choice. This like Ice Cube wearing a hat and a t-shirt. I admit I'm drawn to it, but that's because I'm a weird 90s kid who idolizes.
Yeah.
All right, so how about recommendations, Ryan? Let's go with you. If you loved Boyz n the Hood, what do you recommend for our fans?
I gotta say, I think this is the first time where I'm not recommending a movie.
Wow.
Ryan.
Thank you. But I would like everyone to purchase, and I own it on vinyl.
Nice. Wow.
Straight Outta Compton by NWA. And it's really hard. It's really crazy to compare these two things. John Singleton, at 24, was one of the most adult hands telling the story.
Yeah.
Because if you hear the story told by the children who are actually living it, which is Straight Outta Compton by NWA, it is so different.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more misogynistic. It's way more sexist.
Way more misogynistic.
But it's kind of funny, and it's really upfront, and like there's no line, there is no album that like there's no way that this album could be made today. It really is. It's really good rapping, but it also is this time capsule of like this is it. Like there's no way that we could ever get this from history again.
All right. Mike, what do you got?
I was gonna say Dope, but then I thought Dope is too fun to be similar. So like if you're going for this, because it's a romp.
You mean just you're just saying people should do Dope?
Just do Dope. The movie Dope with starring Shamik Moore.
Does that mean heroin?
I mean, Dope it means everything.
Dope
baby.
is like any drug, I think. You have to know like what drugs you're already talking about because some people call pot dope.
Drugs are dope.
Heroin dope.
Drugs are dope.
So what I think captures it is also not a movie. Is I was like, what's like a black story where the protagonists are complicated? You don't necessarily are rooting for anybody, but it shows how they are trapped by their circumstances. I'm gonna say Beloved, Very different
wow.
time period in history, but it's just most of it takes place, in this tiny black town, and just how the things of the past have continued to cycle through and fuck them over, and because they're recently released slaves. And it's if you want that same thing, like, man, I'm fascinated by this person, but I don't love them necessarily, it captures that very well.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters that you might be interested in, but probably won't fall in love with in that. I'm also going to recommend not a movie.
Greg.
Their Eyes Were Watching God.
I was going to say Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Ryan.
That's a really good one, Ryan.
Oh, shit. Have you guys heard of Their Eyes Were Watching God?
What, the band or the book?
The band. I think the band is...
No.
Is that a band?
Ryan.
Book only. I think there is a band called Their Eyes Are Watching God. But, in a way of just looking at people who are not perfect, but who are loved by the artist. And I think that's what you see here, maybe caught in a tragic situation, the situation being, Eatonville in Their Eyes Are Watching God. And, that what happens to everybody down on the muck in the Everglades when the big storm comes, but loving the people and not judging them, and not only telling one type of story about them, but instead being like, this is how I saw the world around me, and I want to capture it for all time in the loving way that I perceived it.
And the main black character is flawed, and the black characters that this main black character is involved with are very, very flawed.
Yeah.
And instead of being like, we're ready for white time, we're all polished, and we can all be ready, this isn't that story of just like Boys in the Hood of it's not Pursuit of Happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not that a people have to be perfect to be loved. It's that,
or get to tell their story.
Yeah, and that you can want to celebrate what you really saw and not try to turn it into something that everyone is going to be like, I'm uplifted by this. You don't have to be uplifted by it.
Because we have so many stories about how white people are terrible, and that doesn't change how we feel about white people. We
love white people.
They're so great.
Man, white people are so cool. Aqueducts, right? The moon landing. Man.
Oh, wow.
These
Two
are
things that were faked by white people.
Okay, Mike, aqueducts were real, buddy.
Have you
I'm
seen
gonna
them?
show you.
I ain't seen no aqueducts anywhere.
Okay. He's got me there, listeners. There are no aqueducts anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to tell you who won this game, and we're going to guess how far Boys in the Hood might go.
Hola, Filterinos. I just wanted to interrupt real briefly and say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to support us a little more directly, you can go to patreon.com/yourpopfilter. There, depending on what tier you pick, $1 a month, $5 a month. If you're crazy, anything more than $5 a month, don't do that. You can get extra content. There's extra shows, extra series, behind-the-scenes stuff. You could pay for Ryan to draw you a picture. I can write you a poem. You can get the shirts off our very own backs. All of that and so much more over at patreon.com/yourpopfilter. While you're on the internet, you should check out Shady Monk. He does all the tunes you've been listening to. He's on Bandcamp, he's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever kids get their music these days that I'm too old to know. Shady Monk lives there. You can probably follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's Shady Monk. Wherever you get music, check him out.
All right. Folks, it was a very close one.
Mike got it. Mike, no,
you scored 45 points. Ryan, you scored 47.
Oh,
damn, that is close.
Once again, that is our highest scoring bout, which seems like it happens every single time. That, I feel like, is probably a good sign for Boys in the Hood. What is the temperature level on Boys in the Hood? I personally am feeling right now maybe might be the first place movie at this point. What do you guys say?
What number is this? Is this our second or third?
This is our third.
3.
But last one was Barton Fink, so it's either this one or Barton Fink. Adam's Family, also a movie from this year.
You existed.
But
Thanks,
it's going to be Boys in the Hood or Barton Fink, right? It's going to be one of these two movies.
I think that Barton Fink is probably would be my vote, but I'm forgetting something. You got to be 91.
Yeah,
and there
dude.
is no movie that's more 91 than Boys in the Hood.
Oh, man. So
That's
good.
true.
Boys in the Fink.
Barton Fink is very 1940 or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels Barton Fink feels like it has the timeless one, right? Because regardless of where it's set, it seems to be like an internal present of being trapped in our own minds as we try to create things or not. But the 91 of it all, very Boyz in the Hood. But Boyz in the Hood also has, we don't fully understand it. We don't totally know why everything happens. It only becomes formulaic in the event that something actually happens. It doesn't actually. It's not paint by numbers, I think, at any moment. I don't know. I think it might have what it takes to, against any other movie, perhaps do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised or disappointed if it takes it. Our movies of the year can also have glaring flaws, and that's okay.
That's true, and I think often they do, because Hollywood has yet to make the perfect movie, despite the fact that I'm literally calling them every day with a script that is going to do numbers.
I mean, Dog Day Afternoon won, and
Madison.
that had no Spielberg or Shark in it.
And you're saying that's a flaw?
That's a flaw. That's
I guess that's most movies' flaw then.
Would Dog Day have been better if it had Bruce the
Yes,
Shark in it?
absolutely.
Obviously, yes. Okay.
It was a 3-man team who took over the bank.
Well, sounding the depths here, I'm getting the feeling that it could do it, but it's not anybody's number one choice yet.
Yeah, I think that we're a little nervous about the movies that we haven't seen before. Like Better Day Tomorrow. What's that movie?
Beautiful Day.
Beautiful Day.
Yeah.
And then Terminator 2 is still out there.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then we have a number one seed, Silence of the Lambs, which are we thinking that has no chance of winning?
Oh, no. I feel the opposite of that. Because that one's got the popcorn flick effect. It's got great performances. It's 91.
About
also
the scariest movie that
timeless.
Greg will ever watch.
Yeah,
Yes.
Probably. Honestly. They're like, okay, here's this really spooky guy. Don't worry. We've already arrested him. And then halfway through, they're like, oh, shit, we lost the spooky
let
guy.
him out.
Sorry, everybody. He's gone. He cut off a face and he put it on his face.
T2 and Silence of the Lambs, I purposely forget are coming in the season so I can pretend other movies can like have a fighting chance.
But I think this Barton Fink versus this movie back to back, that's a good way to forget those two, right? Like,
Yeah, I think it is.
these are two crazy ones.
I think that there's a way in which T2 and Silence of the Lambs are going to burn very hot but very briefly in our thinking. And that there's going to be something that just hangs around about Boyz in the Hood. I think that we are going to sit with this movie and it's going to become bigger and bigger in our thoughts rather than smaller and smaller. There's not a lot left to think about T2. It's the perfect movie, obviously. It's the most 91 movie, obviously. There's no weaknesses. There's no flaws. It's got Linda Hamilton and her twin sister.
There's that line with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he's like, hasta la vista in 1991, which we are in right now.
All the characters say Greg is worthy of love. Right? And anytime a movie has that moment, I know I feel good.
Oh, you got the director's cut?
I think the important thing to keep in mind is that, we've got a lot of season left. We've got a lot of really good movies left. And you're going to hear them all on Movie of the Year. We will be back with Terminator 2. We will be back with Silence of the Lambs. We'll be back with special episodes. We'll be back with our tweeners. We'll be back. But until then, everyone, hey, keep watching them movies.